in the lane, moving fast, ayy, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Thursday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys. I'm going to skip the rest of the intro. I'm going to bring him up right now because this is going to be action-packed, and this guy's got a lot to share. So with that being said, I have Mr. Jeremy Prince on the show, ladies and gentlemen, to tell us all about his story. So Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No, absolutely, man. I'm really looking forward to this. we literally just talked for the first time like a month ago, and it was like, dude, it was almost like an hour-long conversation. And, you're just really easy to talk to, and you have a really good story. And I'm really looking forward to kind of putting that out there for people today. So, dude, how'd you get your start in freight, Jeremy? What brought you into transportation?
Well, first of all, I'm glad to be here. I really enjoyed our first conversation. I'm looking forward to this one. I actually, I don't really do shows. I try not to. I think you know that. But one of the reasons that, I agreed to be on this one is that you do, right? You do try to talk to the real people doing the real things in the real world of this industry. Mm-hmm. Not just the talking heads and the pundits and the tech geeks and everything, but, actual professionals. And actually, I love watching your interactions with Sean Smith, by the way.
Yeah.
They're Sean, or P. Sean, as I like to call him. We're customers of Denim, one of your, sponsors. And Sean is like one of the realest of the real. Love that guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's one of those, that's one of those shows, Jeremy, where it's like, just the financial literacy in business is so overlooked, right? And it's like, you don't think about it when you start your company, right? Like, oh, wait, why do I need business credit? What's a personal guarantee? Right. All of this stuff. And then you're sitting there and your head spinning. So it's like when Denim and I, we partnered up, we've been partners for like a year and a half now at this point. We were like, how do we come up with like a monthly show that's not like a sales pitch, but more of like, hey guys, this is how you understand the business financial side of things. Yeah. And I love it because it's like, I'm learning more and more. I feel so much more prepared as my company grows and scales by having those conversations.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, I haven't been a freight brokerage owner for very long, right? I've been in the business for about 13-ish years. But we've only been doing this thing at Peregrine since about 2021. We got right into it, like in the middle of the soup.
Yeah.
And honestly, Denim has been a substantial partner in helping us like really look around the corner. And like you said, just educating us on things I had no idea about.
Yeah.
I have like 4 credit hours of accounting for my MBA, right? That's all I know, But it was, that was a tough year too, 2021. Everybody on the show is almost certain to remember, post-COVID, the market went insane. I was working as a shipper at the time. I was a director of logistics for a really large, distribution company that worked in the in the construction space. Mm-hmm. And, and as a shipper, we were losing carriers left and right to our competitors. I mean, who knew shingles would be, a competitive freight profile that was going to draw away drywall carriers, right? I mean, everybody was just taking it on the chin. And, a lot of our drivers, after, being beat up in the COVID era, all the shutdowns and everything, they had to chase those higher rates. I didn't begrudge them. I knew they needed to make money. They'd been hurting. But on the flip side, bluntly, as a shipper, right, I was failing. And so the structural needs of the company that I worked for had changed. COVID had seen to that. We needed partners that were able to make significantly larger physical investments in, physical assets. We needed more redundancy within our supply chain, and we were going the opposite direction. And even for those brokers, and we had good partners, brokers and carriers that were doing a great job for us. But again, everyone remembers equipment supply was constrained back then.
Yeah.
Even if you could find equipment, it was like 2 to 3 times what it should have cost. And the interest rates, were double what any of these guys had been used to paying. So what we were asking for as a shipper was a big ask.
Yeah.
And, as the shipper, we couldn't bridge that gap for them, right? We couldn't give them what they needed to stay on the business. We did some things, but other things we couldn't. We couldn't help them with their insurance. We couldn't help them with finding equipment. We couldn't help them with the backhaul portion of it. We could only help them with what we could give them.
Yeah.
So as a shipper, we were failing them despite our very best efforts. And that's kind of when I decided that what we really needed to do was create a brokerage that could bridge that gap, right? And if anybody understands the history of brokerage, I'm a nerd. I'm an ex-historian, an old philosopher, right? Anyone looks at my LinkedIn is going to be very confused at my career path, but as a historian, I got a really cool opportunity to sit with Paul Loeb. No, I mean, I'm not in the room. He was giving a speech to all of Echo when Echo bought Command. And one of the things he told was the story of the first time he brokered a shipment in his parents' kitchen, from their landline phone in 1979, 78, something like that. And, back then it was a lot like an art form. I got the opportunity to meet people earlier in my career that had been doing it since the 80s, like Roxy Beasley, who is a legend in the flatbed community. And I got to learn from some of these people, and they would tell you it was an art, right? They matched like 5 loads a day and made a killing off of it. You know what I mean? The art of brokering was genuinely value add, right? And as the professionalization of the industry progressed throughout the 80s and really starting in the mid 90s, the SAPs and the supply chain professionalization, colleges started teaching this stuff as a course and as a professional discipline, right? And what happened? It's the world we all live in today. RFPs, route guides, rate focused, everybody's given paper rates and then, falling off and saying, oh, but I can cover it in the spot market for double the, it's a broken system, man. It doesn't work for anybody. And, we knew from the beginning that we had to be different, man. Honestly. We go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, I'm right there with you, Jeremy. I think I look at freight brokerage like this is my profession, right? Like this is not just like a job to me. And and again, obviously I'm not ever going to sit in here and put myself on a pedestal and say I've never done certain things, because I have. I'm a human being, all right? But at the end of the day, I learned from a lot of it. But at my approach now is it's just like, man, how do I actually add value to my customers and my carriers, right? Because my carriers have to win here too. Otherwise, I'm not going to have carriers. And I feel like we're kind of at an interesting time, Jeremy, because a lot of individuals who are in the market now were not in the market pre-2021. Right? They don't know what it's like to have a capacity crunch. They don't know what it's like to really go through, and you have to make 100 calls to find one truck that happens to be 150 miles away and might not make it in before.
And you're going to lose $250, but at least you're going to cover it, right?
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
And
no, you're right.
Yeah, I can tell the way people talk, the way they post. I can tell that they've never, or if they forgot what it was like. And I feel like we're about to embark upon another segment of the industry here where it's going to eventually whip back into that, right? Like
Yeah.
capacity is going to inevitably tighten up, or supply is going to
Well, we're seeing
increase.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's spring break this week in most parts of the country. We're
Yep.
already seeing what happens when, 20%, 30% of the driver population decides to opt out for just a week or two, right? A lot of my colleagues in the, I'm on text threads. I'm sure you are too, with brokers all over the country, people in all sorts of different environments. And they're all saying like, God, what is going on? We're of course we are. We're about to get there, right? I'm not as bullish as say Craig Fuller is over at Freight Waves, right? I don't think the election solved all of our problems. I think that the trade environment is going to be a little challenging, right? Especially when it comes to cross border and anything that would have to originate in a port.
Yeah.
But I am bullish about the prospects of 2025. But I do think that, like you're saying, it's going to require a different mentality.
Yeah.
I think, again, the industry, my first taste of it was working as a shipper. It has been nothing but confirmed in the 3 or so years since then in running Peregrine that the industry really just doesn't meet the needs of the market anymore. The way that it's currently structured. I think you understand this in your other, experiences. I think most of the people watching here today would say, yeah, it ain't working for me right now. And frankly, you're not alone. If you're out there and that's what you're thinking, I mean, anyone who watches this show will tell you, like, there are good things happening. There are good things happening, good people trying to do good things, but there are a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And it ain't working for most of us,
No, and that's exactly it. So like, how are you out there working with your team, in as a leader of your organization, Jeremy? How are you passing that message down? And I want people to actually, take what Jeremy's about to say here, and whether it's you as a solo operator, a business partner in you, or maybe you got 3, 4, 5 people working for your company, all about what he's about to say here is going to be applicable to you. So how are you working with your team right now in regards to that exact sentiment? Because I know of a lot of people who are really, really good at this industry, Jeremy, on the brokerage side, on the trucking company side, who are like, man, I'm working nonstop and nothing is actually adding to my bank account.
Nothing is landing. Yeah. No, I get it. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, it's all golden roads and, pearly gates for us here, fellas. I mean, we're, we're taking our lumps just as much as anybody else is. But the reality of it is that, again, as somebody who's been a shipper, as somebody who's been a broker, as somebody who now operates 2 fleets. Oh, there's my Max thing around the back. But we operate fleets at Peregrine. We're mixed asset here. So we're also keenly aware of the challenges of trucking companies, right? We have a hotshot fleet and we have an 18-wheeler fleet. And but we have found that the most important thing is the thing that we've had the most success with is being transparent and committing to honesty. I know it sounds like kumbaya and let's work on our patch for our our sash, but honestly, and there are real practical ways that we've gone about this, right? We do not focus on the inputs. That's something I learned as a shipper. Focusing on the inputs like rate is going to lose you control of the output, outcome every time. Right? You're an old freight broker. You know how this thing works. The more you focus on driving the price down, the more you risk the potential of losing control of your own supply chain.
Yeah.
And so we focus a lot on low margin, high repeatability. Like you said a second ago, I would rather make 1 phone call and book 10 loads than make 100 phone calls and book 1 load for $300, right?
Yeah.
I'm happy to get $50 on the 10. You know what I mean? Happy, right? It's an easy win for our team. And so that's what we're really focused on: transparency, sustainability, and scalability, right? I have no problem. There's a lot of talk and a hullabaloo right now about broker transparency and whether or not we should be exposing our margins to the market. And, I will leave that for much wiser men and women to decide, right? But as far as we're concerned, if it becomes a rule, I can sleep at night. If it doesn't become a rule, I'm probably going to continue to show my customers anyway, and my carriers, right?
Yeah.
Everyone, I can sleep at night with the margins that I live on, right? That our team operates on. You know, we float on a given month between 9 and 13, you know? I don't have a problem with that. And I don't think anybody with a reasonable approach to the business should have a problem with that either. Our trucking partners are doing at least 90% of the work, right? If we can deliver 90% of the funds that are available for that shipment, we should be, right?
Yeah. It's an interesting stance, right? Because I feel like because I've talked about broker transparency on this show a few times now, Jeremy. And my stance is the way the law was written, or whatever it was written back in 1980, it was different because trucking companies would hire a freight brokerage at that time to go out and find freight. More like they're hiring dispatch services
and agents
today to do that, right? So it's like, I feel like ultimately the transaction has changed, so it needs to be updated. And I feel like, with that being said, dispatch services should now be held to the exact same standards that freight brokers are. And
I completely agree.
And that's where my stance is on it. Like, again, at the end of the day, I know there's way too much competition out there, Jeremy. Like, people will always hold on to the one thing that goes on out there. The reality is when you look at a 10K of some of the largest publicly traded companies in this industry, everything's right out there on where they are. And trust me, if those guys are only making 10 to 15%, there's a high probability that everybody is making that the overwhelming majority of the time. Let's remove the outliers. Everybody makes money. And again, nobody complains when they're making money, though, Jeremy. And that's my big thing with a lot of this is when the people were charging $5, $6, $7 a mile, there's no cries for broker transparency during that time. Again, I am a capitalist, you guys. Everybody deserves to make money, okay? And I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not complaining when people are making money, but when the ebbs and the flows happen, you can't cry wolf when you're going through a downtime, because all business owners go through a downtime.
That's right. I mean, there's a bit like you said, right? It's crocodile tears.
Yes, correct.
But again, I have never had a problem letting my customers or my carriers know what I'm being paid. And we expose. We have a really great TMS. I won't try to shamelessly plug on the show, right? I know you got your partners. I'll leave it as
I appreciate that.
We have a great TMS, and like most of the really good TMSs out there, they have the ability to expose a lot of, basically expose whatever you want to your carriers and to your customers within their tenants or portals that they have. And so we do that, right? We kind of default switch them all to max transparency because we're not worried about it, right? We know that honestly, because of our transparency, we've had more people responding positively to that. Right. Yeah. Like they actually, there's a credibility and a trustworthiness that comes with realizing that, no, your broker isn't making 50% margins like you think he is.
Yeah.
I mean, when he's making 9, you're like, oh, wow, how is he surviving on that? Yeah, exactly. How are we surviving on that? Maybe you could give us just $25 more. Come on, man. Like,
we don't penny pinch either. Like, we always try and take care of the drivers in a lot of these situations, and sometimes it comes at our expense, right? Like we went through something this week where we lost money on it at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, I look long-term, 12 months, right? Like I look over the next 12 months. I'm not going to let 1 or 2 shipments throw off, because like, again, the difference between me and a lot of other people who create content in this industry is I'm in the thick of things, you guys. Like I am actively building a business. I know how hard and how long it takes to earn somebody's business. And I do not take that for granted out there at all. Like, and that goes with both of my businesses, right? Well, on the media side, as well as the brokerage, Jeremy. Like I don't take any of this for granted. People pay me money, like that's a lot, and I'm like, and I get to literally live my dream out with this. So, I don't take any of that for granted. And I feel like that's one of the big things that is kind of what I can kind of see out there is there's almost an entitlement to results because you started something and you think like, oh, well, I have this business, you should just be paying me whatever I feel. And I don't know if enough people understand how it actually works out there.
No. And honestly, I mean, that's why we've tried to do it differently. Like really,
Yeah.
our pricing model is not market-based. We do not offer market-based arbitrage pricing to most of our customers, right? And by that, I just mean like the normal way that most freight brokers do things,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, I'm going to quote this for 1,000 and I'm hoping to get somebody for 800, 850, 900, 950, whatever, right? We focus on talking to our carriers, right? We have really like, if I had more than 1,000 trucking partners, I'd probably be doing this wrong, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to have, the 20,000, the 30,000, the 100,000 that some of these big brokers are talking about, right? I want to have a few number of carriers that I basically load every day, right? High utilization. And I start, and that's what we do. And we start with them and we talk to them. We ask them questions. What's your target for breaking even every day? What do you need to make in order to break even? When do you start to make money as the trucking owner, right? Like what's the number for you, right? And so then we start at that cost level and we go out and we start from there and we say, look, our carrier costs are $800 on this, right? So we're going to put 10%, 880. Customer, this is your rate. It's fully exposed. The carrier knows that we're charging 880. The customer knows that we're paying 800. Everyone is fine, right? And because of that, and plus we're focusing on, I don't want to say a niche industry, right? Because I don't mean it quite that way, but flatbed freight, building materials, construction materials, energy products, industrial supply, over-dimensional material handling equipment, right? This is a very specific group of people that don't often get a lot of focus within the business, within the broader industry, right? And so we want them to understand that the carriers that are the drivers that are showing up every single day to their yards, right, and getting unloaded and helping, helping the guys with the untarping and all the stuff that happens on, those guys are making money that they can live on.
Yeah.
We want our customers to be confident in that because they're the ones that are talking to their forklift drivers and the receiving folks on the, in the warehouse and stuff. We want them to know that those guys are happy. They're happy to haul this customer's freight because this customer, through a partnership with us, has committed to paying them a living wage. And that's the important piece.
How do you get that down to your team though, Jeremy? Because how do you balance that? Because, again, when I say I'm a capitalist, you guys, I believe in ethical capitalism, right? Like I don't believe in just Chris Jolly winning. There has to be an environment where all parties are feeling that they are compensated fairly. The customer, the shipper, they're like, hey man, you're charging us a fair rate. That's what we're looking for out there. How are you pushing that out to your team as a leader of an organization where it's like, hey guys, let's think long-term about this. Let's not think, how do we get rich today in this moment?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I was hired into the industry by somebody, I think, Michael Caney, who's now over at Highway, one of the leaders at Highway. He was one of the guys that brought me into this business, 13 years ago. And he taught me a valuable lesson, which is how not to be what he called penny wise and pound foolish. Or in other words, stepping over dollars to chase dimes, right? And I think there's a lot of that in this business. And so I think for the first thing is that I have an easier job as an organizational leader because I have really good people, right? They're very smart. They see the bigger picture more easily than a lot of the colleagues I've had in this industry over time. So, we start with good people, but the point is that we want to incentivize them, right? The structural incentives of the industry are such that most brokers can only make a decent living if they do things that are a bit unethical and dishonest in the business, right? Peregrine, we were very committed from the beginning to not do any of that, right? We believe in high generosity, high accountability that comes with it, right? I mean, like the book says, to whom much has been given, much is expected, right? But, we take that to heart here at Peregrine, but, I pay our people really well. Other brokers are like, please don't tell anybody what you pay them. I'm going to have a mass exodus at my door. They're all going to be knocking on your door to come work for you. But, we pay them very well and we pay them on $1. We don't play the gimmicks and the draws and the shifting goalposts of goals. And we just tell them, look, go make money and we'll pay you, and we ask them to do that within the constraints of the expectations that we set for them, right? We want them to know that they're empowered to go out and make our carrier partners, our trucking partners, the people on whom this entire supply chain relies, and deliver for them something that actually matters, means something, right?
No, absolutely. How did you come to that conclusion on paying on dollar one, right? Because there's a lot of, from a compensation perspective, there's a lot of people out there who are like, hey, you got to cover your seat, right? And,
Right.
like an arbitrary amount, $10,000, right? Say
Sure.
that there's $10,000 seat cost. How do you, as the leader of your organization, when balancing a budget and everything, like there's an inherent risk of bringing people on and having that quote unquote debt expense that comes along while somebody develops their book of business. How do you kind of approach that from, an owner who's, financially responsible for the outcome of the organization?
Well, and that's a great question too, because I suspect, like you, right? We did not take any investment and have not taken any investment, right? We bootstrapped everything, on on my life savings, So, but it is a problem, right? Like one of the things is, how do we grow in a responsible, sustainable way? How do we scale, right? And a lot of that comes down to talent, and a lot of that comes down to the people that we pick. But one of the things that we think about here, in terms of seat cost is, labor has never been something that I've thought of because I've earned a paycheck. Everyone on this, in the audience, I'm sure at some point in their life has earned a paycheck, right? Everyone who's earned a paycheck has always felt that they should be earning a bigger paycheck. And I certainly felt that way too.
Oh yeah.
But one of the things that we think about here is labor as a return on investment, right? Labor is an investment. It's not an expense. It's never been an expense. It is an investment in future outcomes. And so we always set the expectation, hey, we're paying you this. The expectation is this. We think it's fair. If you agree to that, that's good. Get to work. And you're right. There's a ramping up period, and and sometimes things don't work out. I mean, I had somebody on staff, that showed a lot of promise in the interview. Said all the right things, and laid a goose egg for 3 months. Until we had to exit him, and then, that thing happens. But I don't have the payroll puzzle figured out. There are very smart people out there who've tried all kinds of things, but we know that if Peregrine is going to get rich, the people who are working their asses off to make it rich should be also getting rich.
I align with you on that, Jeremy, 100%. Right. My business partner and I are very aligned on that, in the sense of, like, again, hypothetical example here, you guys. I don't have $10 million in profit to play with here, but him and I have sat down and we're like, does our life make that big of a change if him and I split 5 million instead of 10 million? And what could that additional profit sharing going back to the team, what could that do for them? And, we both read Made in America by Sam Walton, which is another book I feel like every entrepreneur needs to read. After we both read that with profit sharing, we're both like, yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. Cause it's not always about how much, because, like, I just feel like, again, I'm not in a financial freedom point of my life, but I'm also like, the money's going to come, right? And I'm like, how do I make sure everybody around me gets what they're deserved? Like, right? Like, yeah, of course, I obviously have a lot larger risk, and my name's on the side of it and everything else. But I also understand that after a certain point, the team's output will far exceed mine from, like, a revenue generation standpoint, right?
Yeah. I started my career early, right out of high school. I didn't go to college right out of high school. And one of the first companies that I started for was a technology company. And the entrepreneur, he's still here in the DFW area. His name's Bruce Thompson. You can go out there and read about him. He's done some really, really cool stuff. But one of the things that he said to me early in my career, I was maybe 18 years old, right? And, he was a god in my eyes, right? And he looked at me and he said, look, happy employees work harder, smarter, faster, hands down, every time. And I really took that to heart. I mean, I was a young, impressionable kid. Some people would tell me I'm still a young, impressionable kid. But, I really did take that to heart. And I believe in that. I really do believe in that as a model. High generosity, high accountability. And if I can't expect my people to believe me when I say that, I can't expect my trucking partners or my customers or even my, tech stack vendors, my, denim partners, and that's why one of the things that we do and we've done from day one, is we allow we award our employees with stock, not options or tokens or whatever weird thing, bitcoins or we're not doing any of that. I'm not NFTing for my people, or by the way, I'm just saying acronyms. I don't know if any of them are real, but
it's fine.
But real shares, like actual real shares, right? I mean, people seem to forget that the word company means company. I mean, there's a reason that was the word that we assigned to our business, our concept of business in the English language. It is a company. It is a people business, right? These things don't exist outside of the people who make them what they are. And I've always believed that too. Maybe I'm inspired a little bit by the idea of having golden handcuffs on our people too. We pay really well. We invest a lot in these people. I would hate to see them walk out the door, right? But although that is always the goal, train them well enough that they would be able to walk out the door, but treat them well enough that they don't.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do here. We want to focus on ethical, generous, high accountability, elite performance. That's it. And we want to focus on industries where we know we can drive business, drive value to their businesses. Talking to them is a lot like talking to somebody who's like, got their dream car. It's like talking to them about tires, I mean, what do they know about tires, right? There's 4 of them. The car doesn't go anywhere without them. Anytime I have to mess with them, I know it costs way more than I think that it should. That's logistics.
Yeah.
That's logistics to most companies, right? It's the tires on the car. Why are you talking to me about tires? I don't care. They're rubber. I don't know. What do you want? But if you understand what they love about that dream car, their business, if you really get into their head, right, you can understand why changing the tires might be something they want to do, because it would shave a quarter of a second off their 0 to 60 speeds, right? If they're into speed, or it might offer better traction when they're off-roading in their trucks, right? I have an F-150. I like to take it into the grass, like every suburban, joker with a truck. Again, like once we really understand what our customers and our trucking partners genuinely need, the true value propositions appear, right? Not just the rate whipping, right? Any joker can call a CFO of a distribution company and say, oh, I can cut $1,500 a month off. Anybody can do that. I can do that, right? But I can't sustain that.
Correct.
Right? It's not sustainable. And it doesn't provide the quality of service the way that this brokerage and our trucking companies stand in the gap, right? We bridge the gap from each side of the industry that isn't meeting each other's needs, and we hold the line.
Yeah.
And it's worth money. It's worth being paid for. It's a service that adds value. And as long as everyone understands and accepts that making money is an okay thing for a broker to do, then there shouldn't be any problem telling everybody how much we're making.
That's a very, very valid point, Jeremy. And that's a good spot for us to put a cap on part 1 of this conversation, because you're coming, whether you like it or not, you're coming back on here at some point, Jeremy. I know you don't do interviews often, but I'd love to have you back on. Man, how does anybody reach out to you guys to find out more? If you guys are hiring or anything like that, put that all out there, man.
Yeah, sorry, man. That's great. You know what? Honestly, just shoot me an email, right? We're building a tribe over here. We've talked about it, right? We want to hear from other brokers and in trucking companies and, equipment dealers and, anybody, right? So shoot me an email. It's jeremy.prince@one, like the number, peregrine.com.
Perfect. If you guys can't find Jeremy or Peregrine or anything, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with them. But that is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard, which you better have after this one, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.